Hello and welcome back to part 2 of the benefits of eating locally grown foods. Thank you. I hope that the first episode was beneficial to you, and we are going to go right into the meat of this conversation. What I'm going to share with you right now is a survey that was taken, and I got this out of the Consumer Report magazine, and this was a survey done with people who shop at farmers market, and here are some of their reply that they gave to certain questions. It seems as if everyone is talking about eating good grown locally these days. Food grown locally these days. You would think I was drinking, right? The number of farmers market in the US increased 54% between 2008 and 2011, according to the US Department of Agriculture. The National Restaurant Association says that menus featuring locally produced fruits, vegetables, meats, seafood, and wine are among the hottest trends this year. And sections just for local foods are sprouting up in a big box store and supermarkets. The growing movement has even inspired a new word, locavore, meaning someone who prefers food that hasn't moved a long distance to market. But does eating this way automatically mean that you are eating healthier? Here's a quick look at some of this trend. Is it more nutritious? This was one of the first questions that was asked to the people who shop at the farmers market. Eating a balanced diet that includes plenty of produce that has been linked to numerous health benefits. So, it makes sense that buying foods from nearby farms is a healthier move. A review of 16 studies in March of 2010, Journal of American Diabetic Association, found that farmers market have the potential to increase, to produce and lead to more helpful eating, especially in certain communities. But the author said that more well-designed studies are needed to establish definitive connection. One thing that is clear is that fresh food tends to have more nutrients than food that was picked days or weeks ago. Does it taste better? Was the second question. Survey conducted at farmers markets have found that people tend to shop there because they think the food is higher quality and tastes better. For example, a recent survey conducted at a farmer's market in Brownsville, Texas, found that more than 80% of shoppers said the produce was better than what they found in other places they shopped. More than half said they ate more fruits and vegetables as a result of shopping at the market. Is local the same as organic? No, but some vendors might have organic certification and others might follow organic practices such as minimizing the use of chemical, fertilizers and pesticides, and raising animals humanely and without antibiotics and growth hormones, says Brad Mace, an instructor in the environmental studies at Abilene College in Ohio. The gold standard is to buy both local and organic. The bottom line is, while the jury is still out on the specific health benefits of eating local produced foods, there is no question that choosing a bounty of fresh unprocessed foods is better for you than, say, grabbing a prepared meal high in sodium and fat from the freezer aisle in a supermarket. And everyone can benefit from eating more fresh fruits and vegetables, the cornerstone of most farmers' market. If you don't have one nearby or a local food section in your grocery store, consider joining a community supportive agricultural program or a CSA. And that was something that I mentioned before at the end of the last episode 1, when I mentioned about joining the co-op, the food co-op. Why should I buy or eat local foods? Here are 8 straightforward benefits of eating local foods. 1, local foods are fresh and tastes better. Local foods is fresher and tastes better than foods that have been trucked or flown in from thousands of miles away. Think you can taste the difference between lettuce picked yesterday and lettuce picked last week? Factory washed and sealed in plastic? Sure you can. And fresh food lasts longer. Local foods are seasoned and tastes better. It must be said, deprivation leads to greater appreciation. When does a cozy room feels best? When you have come in out of the freezing cold, in season, locally grown tomatoes burst with flavor that's easy to forget. If you only eat one that are artificially ripened with gas. Fresh corn in season tastes best when you haven't eaten any in 9 or 10 months. Long enough for it tastes to be slightly blurred memory that is suddenly awakened with that first bite of the season. Eating locally means eating seasonally, with all the deprivation and resulting pleasure that accompanies it. Local foods usually have less environmental impact. Those thousands of miles some foods is shipped, that leads to a big carbon footprint for a little bunch of herbs. Look for farmers who follow organic and sustainable growing practices and energy used to minimize these foods' environment impact. Local foods preserve green space and farm lands. The environmental question of where your food comes from is bigger than its carbon footprint. By buying foods grown and raised closer to where you live, you help maintain farmland and green space in your community. Local foods promotes safety. The fewer steps there are between your food's source and your table, the less chance there is of contamination. Also, when you know where your food comes from and who grows it, you know a lot more about that food. During the E. coli breakout in spinach in 2006, it was known the spinach in my refrigerator was safe. That's probably one of the questions you were asking yourself. YOLO community by a farmer I knew, and as importantly, that it didn't come from a regular food chain where the outbreak was. The knowledge would have worked in reverse too. If the breakout had been in a YOLO community instead, I would have known to throw that bunch of spinach and scrub down the fridge. Local foods promotes variety. Local foods tend to create a greater variety of foods availability. Farmers who run community-supported agricultural programs, sell at farmers markets, and provide local restaurants have the demand and hence the economic support for raising more types of produce and livestock. This leads to brandy wines, early girls, and lemon boys instead of tomatoes. Local foods support your local economy. Money spent with local farmers, growers, and artisans, and locally owned provers and restaurants all stays close to home. It works to build your local economy instead of being handed over to a corporation in another city, state, or country. Since the food moves through fewer hands, more of the money you spend tend to get to the people growing it. To make the biggest local economy impact your food budgets, seek out producers who pay their workers a fair wage and practice social justice in their business. Local foods creates a community. Knowing where your food is from connects you to the people who raise and grow it, instead of having a single relationship to a big supermarket. You develop smaller connections to more food sources, all of a sudden you know vendors at the farmer's market, the buying manager at the local cheese shop, the butcher at your favorite meat counter, the workers at the co-op that sells the local eggs, the roasters and barista at the local cafe. For some people, the benefit of this is social and psychological. For all of us, though, it pays off in the foods we eat. People who know you tend to want to help you, whether it's giving you a deal on a leg of lamb, letting you know when your favorite tomatoes will be on sale, or setting aside a wedge of the favorite cheese. Eating locally, amazingly, can connect you to a larger world. And you know, this is so true, because a lot of what I've shared with you this evening, I am a witness of that this works. I can give the testimony. For example, on Sunday, I was passing by the farm where I purchased eggs, and I had not left home with the intention to purchase eggs, but because I was in the area, I said, oh, since I'm over this side of town, let me get some eggs. And the eggs cost $3 a dozen, and I stopped and I wanted a dozen eggs, and they did not have change for $10. So I was leaving the eggs to come back, and he said, no, you can take the eggs, and when you come back next time, you can pay me for the eggs. Now, it doesn't matter how much I would be spending in the local supermarket. I won't call their names. If I'm short at 10 cents, I would need to put something back. But there is a relationship that I have established and developed, and they know me and know that I will come back. You know, there's one farmer who knows I like certain things, and when he's going to be putting it out, he calls me to let me know what time he is going to be putting this certain produce out. I want to share with you here in episode 3, we are going to be talking about meats. I know people thinking, oh, she's not going to talk about meats. Yes, I am. But now, for the rest of this segment, I want to give you 10 reasons to eat locally grown foods. Eat locally means more for the local community. According to a study by the New Economics Foundation in London, $1 spent locally generates twice as much income for the local community. When businesses are not owned locally, money leaves the community at every transaction. Locally grown produce is fresher. While produce that is purchased in the supermarket or in-box store has been in transit or cold storage for days or weeks. Produce that you purchase at the local farmers market has often been picked within 24 hours of your purchase. This freshness not only affects the taste of your food, but the nutritional value, which declines with time. Local foods just plain taste better. Ever try a tomato that was picked 24 hours? Enough said. Local grown foods and vegetables have longer to ripen because the produce will be handled less. Locally grown fruits does not have to be rugged or to stand up to the rigor of the shipping. This means that you are going to be getting peaches so ripe that they fall apart as you eat them. Figs that would have been smashed into bits if they were sold using traditional methods, and melons that were allowed to ripen until the last possible minute on the vine. Eat local is better for air quality and pollution than eating organic. In March of 2005 study by the journal Food Policy, it was found that the miles that organic food often travels to our plates create environmental damage and outweighs the benefit of buying organic. Buying local foods keep us in touch with the season. By eating with the season, we are eating foods when they are in their peak taste, are the most abundant and least expensive. Buying locally grown foods is fonder for a wonderful story. Whether it is the farmer who brings apples to the market or the baker who bakes bread, knowing part of the story about your food is such a wonderful part of enjoying the meal. Eating local protects us from bioterrorism. Food with less distance to travel from farm to plate has less susceptibility to harmful contamination. Local foods translate to more variety when a farmer is producing food that will not travel a long distance, will have a shorter shelf life, and does not have a high yield demand. The farmer is free to try small crops of various fruits and vegetables that would probably never make it to a larger supermarket. Supermarkets are increased in selling name brand fruit, romaine lettuce, red delicious apples, rosette potatoes. Local producers often play with their crops from year to year, trying out little gem lettuce, Senshu apples, and chef-tained potatoes. Supporting local producers, supporting local providers supports responsible land development. When you buy local, you give those with local opening space, farmers and pastures, an economic reason to stay open and develop. I tell you, I want to share a little story about when I went to the farmer's market this past weekend here. There was a squash. I am so familiar, and for years I've been cooking acorn squash and butternut squash. And I saw a new squash, a new variety of squash. I had not cooked it before and I didn't know what it was. And I asked the lady, I was shopping at the organic booth, And I asked her what type of a squash was that, and she told me, I forgot the name of it right now. I said, how do you prepare it? And she said, I cut the both ends off, I dice it up, and I saute it with some Russian kale. And then there was another lady standing next and said, oh, I just put it in my oven and I bake it. And I never thought about using the seeds in the squash, but these two ladies mentioned that they prepare the squash with the seeds in it. And I tell you, I went home and I season it with a little sea salt and some pepper. I stick it in the oven with some olive oil. And when it was 3/4 baked or roast, I think, because it was open, I put my Russian kale in it and just stir it up and lower the heat in the oven with the seeds and everything, and it was so delicious. So that's one of the things that happens when you go to the farmers market and begin to swap recipes and share stories. You don't need to be a gourmet cook, because it doesn't take a lot for the local produce to taste amazing. So if you don't know how to do something, don't be afraid to ask the people right there in the market. I asked a gentleman, I said, what do you do with the leaf part of the fennel? And he said his wife puts it in the broth, in the stock, for when she makes a soup. When I buy my organic beets, I don't throw anything out. I juice the leaves and the stem, and I roast the beets themselves, and that too is a very delicious. I began making kale chips, which is delicious. Make some collard green chips, and that was delicious, and they're easy to bake. So in the coming weeks, I'm going to be sharing with you some of the recipes that I have created that is helping to transform the new me. So I want you to come back, because in episode 3, we will be talking about organic meats. All right? For all of you meat lovers, everybody loves some meat, so we're going to tell you how to choose healthy meat. So I see you in part 3 of the benefits of eating locally grown foods. And as I say, we will be talking about organic meats when we come back.